Nathaniel entered his meager quarters and looked around. Each of the monks had a similar room, with only enough space for a bed, a closet, and a small writing desk. However, Nathaniel's room had been rendered even smaller by the large amount of books lying around the room. The sudden sight of his bed made him realize how tired he was. He collapsed on his deck chair and rubbed his temples. When he set out to preach this morning, there was scarce a thought in his head he'd be asked to share his message elsewhere. He nearly chuckled to himself. His message? He wasn't quite sure what that was. He only knew what he had been taught. His tired eyes traveled to the books on his desk and what he had read. He sighed, not out of exhaustion, but rather discontent. His fingers were made steepled at his chin. The titles of so many reread books visited his sight. El Hashem in Different Cultures, The Weapons of War, even a copy of the Herbology of Healing, which he had acquired from one of the white-robed monks once in an attempt to find a cure for sneezing during the spring months. Should probably give that back, he thought to himself. Leaning forward to grab the book, Nathaniel accidentally knocked another one from his desk. He attempted to catch the book in midair, but his reflexes failed him. The book tumbled from his fingertips and landed splayed open, pages down on the floor. Curiosity struck him as he realized he couldn't read the language sketched on the cover. He immediately forgot the herbology book and gently picked up the small treasure and dusted it off. More than a field journal than a printed book, Nathaniel took great care to tenderly turn the pages that appeared old and brittle at the edges. The smell of leather still worked magic on the monk's senses, bringing him back to a place in his childhood where his father had given him a similar book. So many different images jumped out at Nathaniel. Whoever owned the book had taken their time to capture the intricate details of Novus. It was full of stories and indexes and sketches of people or places the writer must have met a long time ago. In some places, the strange, indecipherable language would appear in a different colored ink, and Nathaniel wished he could understand what was written in the margins. There were so many stories, so many sketches, he'd probably be able to pursue the diary for years and still find something interesting. Perhaps he picked it up at the history section of the library and forgotten it. He couldn't remember how it came to be on his desk. Indeed, if Nathaniel did decide to travel abroad, this would be the one book he'd take with him. He gently closed it, laid it atop the summit of books on his desk, and readied himself for bed. Glad to be done with the day, Nathaniel banished his busy thoughts and let exhaustion overtake him. And that's when the nightmares started. Screams and people and monsters and blood. So much blood. Someone had scorched the sky, and it was the color of crimson. Something devoured his stomach. A man, a monster, and its face was covered in red. Images flashed before his closed eyes while he wrestled for sanity, screamed for help, begged for relief. The fiery sky was slowly consumed by billowing black clouds. The beating of drums, far and distant, but growing ever closer, thrummed a deadly rhythm into his consciousness. Drawings with insidious purple eyes came to life. Nathaniel could feel it, the darkness, the evil, but he could not fight it. Finally, the fire went out and only blackness remained. Yet this darkness wasn't the same as before. It felt more comforting. Seconds passed before Nathaniel realized he was awake and still screaming. Rolling out of his bed, he clattered to the floor in terror. He scrambled away from sheets that somehow entangled him as an octopus would its victim. Indeed, Nathaniel couldn't breathe fast enough to escape the atmosphere that stifled him. Light, he breathed. I need light. Scuffling from the darkness, he toppled over his desk chair. Images from his nightmare returned. Hordes of people fumbling in the dark, attempting to get away from the malevolence which would consume them. He shook his head violently to remove the images, and finally found one of the pillar candles he used for light. Quaking hands made it difficult to strike the match, and Nathaniel nearly cursed when it took him 3 times to do so. Finally getting the candle to light, he looked about the room. He still felt terrified, but the small, tiny flame on the wick made him feel less alone. Immediately, he looked for the book, the journal he discovered hours before. He knew the answer lay within. Rushing to it as though it were a feast and he were starving, he flipped through the pages fiercely. All care for the condition of the diary instantly disappeared due to the desperation of discovery. There, the unseen. 2 words leapt out at him with such force that he nearly vomited from cold fear. The author of this journal had been able to put into words the exact feelings Nathaniel experienced in his nightmares. The ancient artist had even sketched out the being with quill strokes. How could someone have drawn something without form, without substance, so accurately unless they had experienced it themselves? Nathaniel couldn't look away. The creature glared at him from the pages of the journal, with disembodied fangs and thousands of teeth enveloped in a black inky mist. Even the eyes, though mere drawings, seemed to glow and resonate with power that paper shouldn't contain. Nathaniel knew this was the last thing the artist had ever drawn. He forced himself to turn the page, tearing his gaze from the eyes. The next page didn't avail him from his terror. There was another picture sketched out, this one made up of symbols, perhaps hieroglyphics. There were two moons, the two moons of Novus, one full and the other a crescent, near a silhouette of a serpent-like creature, its tail enveloping a planet. Then underneath the serpent was the sun and 4 stars. Near the picture was the same crooked handwriting, the words, "A prophecy," and more smaller handwriting that Nathaniel had to squint to read. But for once he wished the words had been written in the ancient text so he couldn't understand them. El is one, his light 4. The evil is one, his darkness unseen. The traveler comes. Nathaniel's eyes squinted harder as he struggled to read the tiniest writing which scrawled off the edge of the page. Death is come with him. Feeling a wave of anger well up within him, Nathaniel lashed out at the mountains of books on his desk, flinging them everywhere. Overtaken by rage, he felt the darkness in the room come to life and devour his soul. He became something different in that moment, powerful and terrifying and unstoppable. And I'm out.